Space Shuttle is one of the most beautiful and inspiring pieces of technology humans have ever built. I'm very sad that I missed the opportunity to see a shuttle launch in person, and I hope that one day humanity will once again find a use for a winged spaceplane. Hopefully, the next one will be much prettier than the one I threw together for my spinning spaceship video. I used to play with toy space shuttles as a kid, but they've been stuck in my parents' attic for decades and their manipulator arms were lost long ago. So when I spotted a space shuttle orbiter set for just $10 at the Disneyland Lego store, I didn't hesitate to grab it up. But when I got it home and put it together, I realized there were some serious issues with the realism of the design. In particular, the nose not only looks really dorky but is nowhere near pointy enough. The windshield also looks pretty lame. Luckily, I had these pieces to replace them with. It still looks kind of dorky, like it's wearing sunglasses or something, but at least it's closer to accurate. Then at the other end there are only 3 engines, even though the small but prominent orbital maneuvering thrusters would have been so easy to add. It took me about 10 seconds of thought to figure out how. Then later I decided I couldn't live with the light gray color and replaced the main engines with these black pieces, even though that often makes them harder to see when the orbiter is on display. And why on earth or above it did they make the middle of the underside gray instead of black? I mean, sure, those black ablative tiles got lighter as they were singed during re-entry after re-entry, but that's really no excuse. I wasn't sure if I could fix this until I realized the wings were also a little too wide. The only way I could fix that involved adding another layer of plates underneath, and I was able to replace the stupid gray piece and cover the white areas in the process. Also, the Canadarm in the cargo bay is missing an elbow joint. This one was really tricky to fix, and I wasn't able to make the whole thing white like I wanted. My first design actually used a Star Wars lightsaber handle for one of the segments. Then I realized the cargo bay wasn't long enough. It's supposed to extend all the way back to the front of the tail, so I redesigned the arm again to work with a new, much larger satellite. In the process, I cheated a little, cutting short pieces off a lance with wire cutters to make the little rods I needed. Let's go ahead and deploy that satellite into orbit. Finally, I needed some wheels to enable the orbiter to land. Unfortunately, I couldn't make them retractable, so I just had to attach and detach them manually. And here we are coming in for a landing. So that's the orbiter, which is cool enough on its own, and startlingly similar in size to the toys I played with as a kid, but by itself it doesn't cover the most impressive and inspiring moment in a shuttle mission: liftoff. I had to build an external fuel tank and solid rocket boosters to visualize that. The real fuel tanks were generally orange, but I only have a tiny number of orange pieces, and the tanks were occasionally painted a color closer to red, so I went with that. When I first started trying to build the boosters, I didn't have nearly enough white pieces to work with and ended up with this awkward mix of various lighter colors, and they still weren't quite tall enough. They were also too narrow, so next I tried a design that was a bit too wide instead, but all white except for the nose cones. I finally decided that was way too blocky and I wanted to really do this justice, so I did something I've never done before, ordered a bunch of individual bricks from Lego.com and a few from other sources so I could make the boosters fully white, too narrow again, but I think having them really round is the most important thing. Unfortunately, I had to cheat again and fill the holes in the sides with little rolls of paper. There was just no Lego-based solution that would do the job. Also, this booster design is incredibly fragile. They literally fall apart at a touch, which is ironic considering that after they ran out of fuel and were jettisoned from the spacecraft, the real boosters were recovered intact from the ocean and reused, while the fuel tanks mostly burned up in the atmosphere and the few surviving chunks just sank in the ocean. So yes, the shuttle program had significant negative environmental impacts, including pollution from the rocket boosters and sonic booms during re-entry. But it also enabled the delivery of dozens of Earth-observing satellites that are hugely helpful in understanding ecological problems so we can develop effective solutions. Plus, the shuttle delivered many fascinating experimental modules to the International Space Station, and some of the biological experiments may pave the way for future space-based ecosystems, like the ones I discussed in my previous videos. So overall, I'm fairly proud to have built a somewhat realistic model, including a display stand, so I can have a permanent installation in my room with a 3D recreation of perhaps the most spectacular events I've ever witnessed, not in person, but through video recordings that let you get up close and personal with the launch of the most beautiful spaceship ever to fly. Obligatory political disclaimer. My American patriotism is not about supporting our government's actions regardless of how crazy they get. It's about standing up for our founding values of self-governance, freedom from oppression, and basic human rights when they're challenged by any enemy, foreign or domestic. If you agree with me and you like buttons, you can get some for free at buttonsfordemocracy.org.